Hey guys, Brian Hilliard here, author of the best-selling book Networking Like a Pro and creator of the popular program How to Get 3 or More Paid Speaking Gigs a Year. And I am fired up here because we are with Laura Perks. She is a PR coach. She's out of the UK, and we are going to talk about public relations. Laura, thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be able to share my expertise across the pond.
Yes, across the pond, as it were. Well, we actually connected on LinkedIn, had a chance to kind of talk a little bit and message and get to know each other a little bit before this. And, one of the things that I've always said, because I've struggled with PR, we talked about this, I've struggled with PR. I have been doing this since 2001. I've probably had 3 bites at the apple, if you were to ask, in terms of trying to do PR, none of which have been successful. Some of which have had varying degrees of success. I don't know if I would call anyone successful. So talk to us a little bit about how you would think about public relations and maybe kind of demystify it for us a little bit. Because for me, I don't think I'm still overwhelmed, but at the time I was. Now it's just kind of like, I don't even know what it is exactly. Tell us a little bit about what this PR, what does that mean for someone who's listening as a coach or a consultant?
Well, I am going to say, first of all, you are not the only person to feel like they haven't quite nailed it on the PR front. Now, if you go back to the original meaning of public relations, it's all about protecting a brand's reputation, and because the reputation is your biggest asset.
Right.
Now, for me, that then builds up barriers, because if you're an entrepreneur or a solo business owner or a small business owner, you may not actually identify yourself as a brand.
Okay.
So the first stumbling block is you then don't feel like you're big enough or worthy enough or have anything exciting enough to share, because you're not this kind of big brand like you see on TV,
right.
Your Nikes of the world, your
Right.
Pepsi-Cola, all these big brands that you see all the time, you don't relate to them. You don't think that your business is the same as them, and therefore PR isn't relevant to you.
Interesting. It's a great first point. Okay.
So where I come in, I tend to work more with the entrepreneurs and the small business owners of the world to demystify all this stuff that they already think is PR, and just bringing it back a little bit and making it more in alignment with what they want to achieve. So for me, PR is actually an invitation to experience what you offer.
Okay.
So whether you have a product or a service or an experience, for me, it's about helping you connect to the people who really need what you're offering.
Okay.
So it's starting a conversation, it's connecting to those people and then inviting them in. So it's more about building relationships. So even if it's a journalist or an influencer on Instagram, it's the same kind of method. It's all get to know them, invite them to experience what you offer, and that's where your kind of public relations journey starts.
And it's interesting. I love that point. We hadn't talked about that. I love that point. I think part of it too, and obviously you're the expert, but sometimes people ask, well, what's the difference between public relations and say marketing, right? And for me, if someone were to ask me that question, and I'll ask it to you in a second, but I would say it's 2 peas of the same pod. I think in my mind, public relations is a conversation around facilitating an external source. Okay, in terms of allowing that relationship, as you were talking about, to grow. Whereas for me, marketing, if you would ask me that question, marketing is a conversation around facilitating an internal source via social, direct mail, or something like that. What's your take on that? What would you say to that?
Yeah, mine is exactly the same as yours. So back in the day when I was at university, public relations and marketing they sat side by side. Now, if you worked in public relations, you stuck in your lane, and all you did was you kind of dealt with journalists and you secured coverage for your clients in the media. That's where it ended. Marketing, on the other hand, like you say, is then using your message through direct messaging, through emails, through your blogs, through social media,
Right, right.
period. Now, actually, they're kind of bedfellows. Like
Interesting.
I honestly don't believe that you can have one without the other.
Okay, okay.
And I always describe it as like a pie. So everything you do to communicate about your business is a pie. Now, PR is just one slice. Marketing is another slice. Social media is another slice. Working with ambassadors is another slice.
Right.
So yeah, each slice on its own is yummy. It's great. It satisfies you in the moment. But if you've got the whole pie, it makes more of an impact. So I'm all for working collaboratively with social media managers, digital managers, marketing managers, because it's this one collective that kind of delivers more of a powerful message, because the goal of all of it is to raise your profile and get more people to know about you to buy your stuff.
Right, right. No, you're absolutely right about that. And I want to ask you a little bit about the different breakdown, television, radio, podcasting, all that stuff. But before I do, let's just get the listeners a little bit of a feel for who you are and what you're all about. Obviously, you're out there in the UK. You've been doing this for a little bit. Give us a feel for just a little bit of your background and just kind of how you go about doing things, if you don't mind, because I know a little bit about you, but I don't think anybody else does right this second.
No, of course. And, you know, I love talking about what I do and sharing that to inspire other people and to kind of get them excited about a PR journey that they may even not have thought about before. So for me, I've always loved communication, and I've got a really inquisitive mind, and I just love asking questions to get knowledge. So public relations is something that I studied at university. And I knew it was the right career path for me because it ticked so many of my boxes. So after university, I worked for 2 kind of small to medium-sized agencies in London. And in 2013, I was coming up to my 30th birthday. And I really kind of got to that point that I thought, this can't be it. Like, you really cannot spend the rest of your life working for someone else. And I was quite a senior member of the team at the agency I was at, and I was starting to do a lot of new business outreach. So I was finding brands who I felt a connection to, who I'd be super proud of working with. And I had this light bulb moment of, hold on a minute, you could be doing this for yourself.
Right.
Because all you're going to be doing is bringing clients into an agency. You then may not actually be working on that team. That could go to a different team. And yes, I'd have got kind of commission for it. But I thought, no, like this is the next step. It's going out on your own. And really in the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to really focus on what I want to do.
Right.
And that is helping the entrepreneurs and the small guys who probably haven't got the financial investment to invest in a PR agency.
Right, right. The huge budgets.
Yeah, of course. So I thought, well, hold on, I've got the 15 years, well, I've now got 15 years experience. But for me, it's about helping people share their message to a wider audience.
Right.
So have a conversation, start a discussion about what they need, how you can help. And then obviously the financial conversation becomes part of it.
Right.
But really for me now, it's about connecting to the entrepreneur or the business owner, really kind of focusing on the solutions that they provide for people, how they do that. And then it's a case of connecting them to the people in the media who then have like a ready-made audience waiting for content.
Right.
So for me, it's, you know, it's the whole communication piece, it's the whole connection piece, sharing stories. So it's just breaking it down and just elevating people so that everyone can experience having more people buy their stuff.
Well, good. Let's jump into the weeds a little bit, because I know this is an area that I struggled with. We talked about this. I'm sure other people have had some challenge. Let's break it down into some different components, okay? So in my mind, you have a few things. You have definitely television, you definitely have radio, you have some print if you want to have that conversation. You can pick whatever you like. And you also have podcasting. Like, I know those are like top of mind for most people, like they would understand those things. Can you give us a little bit of a feel for maybe some pros and cons of either one or two? If you want to do all four, that's fine. You'll have to. But if you can you give us some pros and cons of maybe one or two of those elements? And if you don't mind, can you definitely get the podcasting in? Because I know people, they're like, man, I want to be on podcast, but maybe I should start my own podcast. If you don't mind, I'd love to hear that too. So go right ahead. However you want to answer that question is totally fine.
Sure. Well, I'm going to dive right into podcasts because we're on a podcast now. Podcasts are very much up and coming and are seen as an easy way of sharing your message. With podcasts, what I find is there's now so many of them that you can get distracted really quickly when doing your research to find out which podcasts probably best fit what you offer.
Right.
So, for example, if
we're talking, I'm sorry, Laura, just for an interjection. So for those of you guys who are listening, what we're talking about is being an interview on a podcast versus starting your own. You can do that, but what we're talking about, and the point she's making is there's a lot of, if you don't mind me speaking for you for a second, there's a lot of podcasts out there. You start doing your research, it can be overwhelming. And now she's working us through what that looks like. I just wanted to get that clear. Go ahead.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you for clarifying. So, I mean, for example, if you're a personal trainer, if you type fitness podcast into Google, you're literally going to be like inundated with so many different podcasts. And again, if you do it in iTunes or if you've got like the podcast app on your iPhone, keywords just can send you off into like a head spin because there is so much. So what I say to people, and I say this whichever kind of media outlet they want to be part of, is really think about who you want to inspire. Who do you want to impact with your message? Who do you really want to target? So then when it comes to researching podcasts, you've got some more specific keywords rather than just fitness podcasts. So you're then kind of almost focusing on the solution that the listeners are looking for rather than super generic terms that are just going to kind of cause you all manner of confusion.
Do you go about, like when you work with people, just trying to get a vision of clarity for our listeners? So when you go and work with somebody, they're thinking, I don't know what they're thinking, but let's just say someone comes up to you and is like, listen, I'd like you to get me some more PR. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you would sit down with them and have some type of discovery call or a session. Walk us through what that would look like. Like how, okay, so I wanted to get some more PR. I heard you on the show. How would they do that? Or what would you do? What would you do?
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, I have a PR powwow with everybody because it's really important for me that I connect with the person who wants to work with me and vice versa, because I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And likewise, I work off energy. So if I'm not getting the energy I need from the potential client, then it's off. So anyway, we have a call and it goes brilliantly. They decide they want to work with me. So the next thing I do then is we have what I call a delve deeper day.
Okay.
Now at the minute, because of coronavirus, it isn't an in-person event, but I can deliver it all over Zoom. That's not a problem.
Okay.
And this is where I kind of delve deeper into who you are, why you set up what you did, what you do, and figuring out how long you've been in business, what your hopes, dreams, and aspirations are.
Okay.
Then we look at your ideal client.
Okay.
Because it's these people, it's the people who you serve. That's like the golden ticket. So we need to get to those people.
Okay.
And then that's how I kind of weave in the public relations, because if we know who you need to help, it's then a case of figuring out where they're hanging out.
Okay. Okay. And then you would facilitate that.
Sure. Or I kind of coach people in how to do that themselves, because
Okay.
I'm all about empowering people and really kind of boosting their confidence to be able to do it themselves.
Okay.
Because, you know, I've been doing this for 15 years. I know what I'm doing, but it's not a ridiculously difficult science. So what I do is I coach people and I take them along the different steps that I've been
Okay.
taking for the last
Okay.
15 years to get clients in the press. So,
Okay.
you know, it's all about that ideal client. Where are they? If they're listening to podcasts, brilliant.
Right.
Now it's figuring out which podcast do they listen to.
Right. Right. Right.
So one of the techniques I teach is to utilize Facebook,
Okay.
because with like 6 or 8 billion people on Facebook, your ideal client's going to be hanging out there
One way or another. That's
one
exactly
way
right.
or another. So it's a case of, and this is what I do for me personally, for my own kind of business as well as clients, is finding the Facebook groups that are providing a solution to a similar ideal client. So a lot of groups I'm in on Facebook are to do with female entrepreneurs, because that's who I help. And then it's a case of focusing on 2 or 3 of those groups and interacting and engaging with existing content, and then starting to have a conversation by posting about what you do too. So then we're kind of connecting to a different audience, we're building engagement, we're getting the connection, and that's when we start to kind of invite people to experience what we offer.
Gotcha. That is really interesting. You know, I wouldn't have thought about that with the podcast and the Facebook group. Where I thought you were going to go with that, and I'm going to go with this myself, which is fine. Where I thought you were going to go with that was find the groups, then connect with the like for me, I have my own podcast. Find the group, connect with some of the people in there, see if they want to do interviews, and maybe vice versa, and use that as a way to be able to move forward. But I also like, if you didn't have a podcast, then you say, all right, well, find people in the group. Then what you also, I thought you were going to say was find people in the group, talk to maybe the guy and say, hey, listen, I'm looking to get onto other podcasts. You know what I mean? But I never would have thought about that. That is really interesting. Okay, let me ask one more question, then we'll wrap up, and then that'll be fine. What can be a step? What's a single step that people can go through? Some of our listeners can go right now, so that there's different books out there. I don't know, maybe you have some resources, a website or something, but which is fine. Give us a first step. What's a good first step that these folks can take?
So a good first step, I would say, is, and again, this is where I use social media as a research tool. Go to Twitter.
Okay.
And have a look at your local newspaper.
Okay, and Twitter specifically.
I find in the UK, I find that Twitter works really well for this.
Fine.
It could be Instagram, it could be Facebook that works just as well.
Okay.
So search your local newspaper, and on the profile piece, it will probably list the journalists writing for the paper.
Okay.
You can then head on over to their profile, and that's where you'll see the stories that they've been writing about. They may even request information. And for me, that's a really quick way of getting some really fast feedback on whether or not you have a strong story.
Gotcha. So we're talking print now, by the way, for people listening.
Absolutely. So, local newspapers are there to serve their local community.
Right.
They're there to help you build your business. They're there to help connect you to other people around you who are interested in what you're doing.
Right.
So the easiest way for people to dip their toe in the water when it comes to PR, B, commit to doing it without it feeling really scary, that you're not
Right, right,
you're not pitching to like the New York Times or
right.
the Ellen show.
Washington Post, LA Times. Yeah, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So it just
Right,
kind of gives you that little confidence boost, and you'll know fairly soon if it's a story that they're interested in or not. And I just tweet the journalist.
right. That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
and
You
just
know, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Cut you off. Go ahead, Laura. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, like, a really simple tweet, just, hey, I've got a story that you might be interested in. What's the best email address to get you on?
Right. Okay.
So then the journalist will remember you when
Right.
your email pops up in their inbox.
Right.
You've already told them that you have an interesting story.
Right. Right. Right.
So you're then more likely to get a response because they're
Right.
expecting you.
Right. That's interesting. You know, funny story on PR. I read a book on it a while back, and it was talking about, you know, PR. And this was when the internet was coming online, and they were like, you know, blogs is a really good way to get out there too. We didn't even bring that up, but like blogs is a good way to get out there as well. So I read the book, and like all good books, they make it seem real easy, which is good. That's what you want, right? So I'm fired up. I did a script. I looked at my stuff and I called this lady. It was for it was for a national association, okay, of whatever. And I put the thing out. Hey, my name is Brian. Something like what you said. Blah blah blah, blah blah blah. She's like, she emails me back. She says, yeah, that sounds good. Send us some information, your picture, and we'll see what we can do. Send it over. She skins it back and says, oh, Brian, I remember when you were over at the XYZ conference in '87 in California, and we'd love to have your stuff. Send it whenever you're ready. Like, no problem. Now, here's the thing. I was in high school in '87. I wasn't at the XYZ conference speaking. All right? I didn't say a word. I sent stuff over. And you know what the funny thing was? I was terrified to change the picture. It was this kind of dorky looking picture that I'd first used. I was terrified to change the picture. Like, I have better pictures, but I didn't want to change the picture. I didn't want the cat to get, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I never misrepresented myself. I just didn't correct her. You know what I mean? And I was like, I didn't want the cat out of the bag. So I was doing stuff. But yeah, you know, sometimes you got to get lucky, you know, in order to be good. So that's some good stuff. Well, Laura, it was awesome talking with you. Tell these guys maybe how they can get into contact with you, either on social, website, whatever the case may be.
Social media is probably the best way. For my sins, I tend to always be on.
Okay.
So Instagram, actually all of my social media pages, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, it's all at PR with Perks, and that's spelled PERKES. Always open for connections on my personal Facebook page. Again, you can find me at Laura Perks, and also LinkedIn at Laura Perks.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, as we've just said, that is Laura Perks. My name is Brian Hilliard. Hopefully you guys got some really good stuff out of this and be able to move forward with it. Laura, thanks so much for your time, and you guys as well. You take care. Okay, that was good. Excellent job. Let me hit this.